Hey everyone, back in January I created a video on this channel that's been tremendously popular about how to set up your own RTMP server, and I've had a lot of people reach out to me and ask how do I make this available for other people to watch. And well, I'm going to show you how to do that. Before I do that, I actually want to go through some of the reasons that you probably shouldn't do that. It's really not necessarily a good idea for a lot of different reasons. I've got 7 on my list here, but that's really just the tip of the iceberg. And so yeah, so you probably don't really want to do this, but I am going to show you how to make this happen. I'll provide the necessary files for you to actually be able to do this. So anyway, so if you haven't watched that other video, I'm going to tell you to pause right now and go back and watch that video first before you watch the rest of this, because this one is going to build on that other one. I'm not going to repeat any content that is already in that other video. So pause now and go back and watch that other video. So if you're watching on a computer, you can use the card that's popping up here in order to do that, or you can also get to it through djp.li/RTMP server, and there will be a link there to that video as well. So let's talk about the reasons why you shouldn't do this first. Alright, reason number 1. You probably don't have enough upload bandwidth on your internet connection in order to make this happen. The average bandwidth, from what I understand, for upload here in the United States, and it's going to be vary out throughout the rest of the world, is about 7 megabits per second, so it's not very high. So if you were going to do a stream that, say 1080p stream at 3 megabits per second, which is actually kind of low, you would only be able to have 1, maybe 2 people watching at the same time. So every person that connects needs to have their own separate bandwidth from everybody else. It's not a broadcast. Each person needs their own separate connection, and they need bandwidth from the computer that's providing the stream in order to be able to watch. So if you have a typical internet connection here at your home, and you're doing this from your home or business or whatever, you need to have enough bandwidth for each person who's watching in order to be able to watch the stream. What happens is once you reach your limit, it basically becomes unreliable for everybody, and you probably don't want that to happen. It isn't just the last person to connect who's going to get bumped off. It's basically everybody's going to get kicked off at that point, so you probably don't want to experience that. Alright, reason number 2. Our internet connections in our homes are designed for downloading files. They're not designed for uploading files. And when you're streaming from your home or business, what you're doing is you're really uploading files to somebody else. They're connecting into your computer and they are downloading, but it's uploading from your connection. And our internet connections are not designed to handle that, particularly if you're on a cable modem. So any upload traffic that's being sent out of your residence or business takes a lower priority than anything that's being downloaded. And you're also sharing that upload bandwidth with everybody else who's in your neighborhood. So you probably won't be able to sustain very high upload speeds even if your internet connection is rated fast enough in order to be able to do this. So, not necessarily a great idea. Alright, number 3. The path between you and your viewers on the internet is going to be not designed to handle this. Again, it's very much like trying to do uploads out of your home. The internet is not designed to work in this way. The way our internet connections are set up with our ISPs, it's designed for mostly downloading. Most of us that you have internet, we're doing mostly downloads. We're going to web pages, downloading content from the web servers, we're streaming video, we're listening to music, whatever. That's a mostly download-centric type of use of our internet connections. And uploading, streaming video from your house or business is upload, and so you're going against the grain. You're a fish swimming upstream in order to try and get your video out to other people. So again, not designed for it. Number 4, long distance connections are not going to be reliable. A lot for the same reason. If you're trying to stream to somebody that's on the other side of the world or even the other side of the country, your fish is swimming upstream an awful long way and is probably not going to be able to make it fully intact at the speeds that you need in order to do reliable video streaming. Alright, okay. Number 5. This is one of the reasons that we use the big providers. So we've got places like YouTube, Facebook, Vimeo, Wowza, Amazon. All these companies provide video streaming, and they're set up their network specifically to do that. One of the things that they also do for you, in addition to distributing the files, they also do transcoding. So, say for example, I'm streaming video, I'm creating a video at 3 megabits per second, but my friend that's across the country, they're on a really slow internet connection, and they're only able to watch at 1 megabit per second. What YouTube and all the other companies do is they do transcoding, creating alternate copies of your video stream at lower bandwidth so that other people who do not have as much bandwidth are still able to watch the video. And if you're going to run your own server, you have to either, one, do transcoding into other formats, which I'm not going to get into, it's just way too complicated, or you encode multiple copies of your video at lower bandwidth in order to provide a stream that they can watch. Again, YouTube and other companies are doing this automatically for you, so you don't have to worry about it. But if you're running your own server, you've got to provide different levels of quality for all the different speeds of internet connections of anybody who's going to be watching. So in the case of doing your own, instead of doing it using a transcoder, you'll need a separate RTMP encoder for each one of those different bandwidths, and you need enough bandwidth on your internet connection in order to get those to your RTMP server that we're going to be setting up here in a little bit. So again, very much not ideal. Now, one thing that you can do instead of running this out of your internet connection in your home would be to set up a server in the cloud, so on something like Amazon AWS or Microsoft Azure, one of those. You can absolutely do that. Yeah, this software will run on a copy of Windows that's running in one of those cloud servers, no problem. Big downside to this, you're probably going to be paying out the nose for it. Bandwidth gets eaten up very quickly, and for example, on the AWS server that I have, each gigabyte of data that's downloaded costs me 9 cents. If you're doing a 3 megabit per stream, which again is pretty low for 1080p, each viewer is going to cost you about 15 cents per hour. If you have 200 viewers, that's $30 per hour. If you have that many viewers for 2 hours, that's $60 it's going to cost you. It adds up really fast. It may not seem like a lot, but it does add up very quickly, particularly if you have a lot of viewers. So, again, you probably don't want to do this yourself. You probably want to use another service in order to do this, one that's already been set up and is equipped to better handle this. All right. Next one. This is again why you want to use YouTube and whatnot. These other companies set up content delivery networks. So basically, when I, here in Utah, go to watch a video online, I am probably not connecting, for example, to a YouTube server that's in California. It's probably located much more closer geographically to me. So what happens is these companies are making copies of their files to various servers throughout the world so that anybody watching, they don't have to go very far in order to get that data. They keep that data geographically close by, and that's a content delivery network. And unless you want to set up one of those on your own, you probably don't want to be trying to run your own streaming server as well. And then the last one that I just want to mention quickly, again, I'm not a lawyer, but it's important to realize that if you set up your own server, you are 100% on the hook for any copyright infringement or other liability issues that may come up from running your own server. So, if you're using another service like YouTube, they've got licensing deals in place with music holders and video content owners. So if something happens, you've got a little bit of a shield there. However, if you run your own and you're streaming content that you don't own the rights to stream, you're in for a possible world of hurt if you were to get caught. So again, it's not necessarily a good idea to run your own server. All right, now with all those caveats out of the way, I'm going to get into showing you how to actually make this happen. We're going to pick up basically where the other video left off, although I'm going to review a couple of steps, and then we'll get into how to basically set up a web server in order to allow people who want to view your content to be able to connect and be able to see that video. Again, in the last video, we downloaded the copy of the Nginx web server, and then I had a configuration file there that you could download and apply to it in order to basically run your own RTMP server, which you could then connect to with any software that supports RTMP, like VLC, and watch video that way. We're going to go with the same Nginx software, but we need a different configuration file. So again, I'm showing you the original downloads here. So Nginx download, Nginx configuration file, and then I've got a link to the original video. Now we're going to use the same Nginx software that we used before, but we're going to need a new configuration file. So in order to get this, we're going to go to djp.li/rtmp streaming, and I'm just going to very quickly re-download the Nginx software. So anybody who's joining us for the first time, this is basically where you get the software from. So I'm going to click on this link for Nginx software, and then from there, I'm going to want to click on the file that says Griffin, Nginx griffin.zip. And we'll save that. And then we also need VC Redist x86. That's the same whether you're on 32-bit or 64-bit version of Windows. And we're going to let those files download. Alright, with that, I'm going to go ahead and minimize my web browser, open up those downloads, and we need to extract them into a very specific location in order for this to work. Before we were able to get away with having that file in anywhere, but if in this particular case we need those files to be in the root directory of C. So here I've got the zip file containing the Nginx software. I'm going to take and copy all of this, and then I'm going to open a new window to the root of my C drive. I'm going to create a new directory called Nginx, Nginx, there we go. And then I'm going to paste all of those files that I just downloaded into that folder. So I'll open that up and then paste. There we go. Alright, so that gives us the Nginx software. And then we're going to need the configuration file and web server files that I've created. So we're going to find that by going back into our web browser, going back to the djp.li/rtmp streaming link, and then we're going to click on the configuration files button there. And that's going to download the rest of the files that we need from my web server. Again, minimize the web browser, and then I'm going to open up this Nginx streaming.zip file that we just downloaded. There we go. Select all these files, Control-C to copy, and then I'll go back over to this Nginx directory that we just created on the C drive, and I'm going to paste those files in. It just takes just a few seconds. And yes, we want to say yes, we want to merge the files. And now we've got all the files that we need. So everything's ready to go. We're in good shape here. First thing we need to do is we need to decide on what we want to call our application. So RTMP has an application name. Oh, sorry, it's an Nginx actually that has an application name that we're going to use for RTMP, and then we're going to need to decide if we want one or more stream keys. I'm going to show you guys using an application name of live and a stream key of stream1. Okay, so as we go, whenever you see the word live, that's an application name. And if you see the word stream1, that's going to be the stream key that we're going to use. You can run multiple applications, you can run multiple stream keys at the same time, and there's a little bit of configuration that needs to be done for each one, and I'll step through that here as we go. Okay, first thing we're going to do, we're going to want to go into the conf directory for configuration files, and we're going to look for nginx.conf. So nginx.conf, and I'm going to right click on that and I'm going to say open with Notepad++, and then we're going to take a look at this file right here. So everything here has already been pre-configured for you in order to get up and going. If you want to use the default application name of live and the default stream key of stream1, if that's okay with you, you don't need to make any changes here. You're already set. However, if you want to change one of those things, let's actually take a look on where we need to do that. So here where it says application live, that is the name of the application that we're going to be using here, and that's going to be part of our RTMP server path that we're going to create here in a little bit. So if we want to change that, or if we want to do multiple, this is where we're going to do that. Now I'll very briefly show you how to do multiple here. There isn't necessarily a huge reason to do that unless you're redistributing your RTMP video stream to somewhere else, for example uploading it to YouTube and or Facebook at the same time. And just very briefly, if you're going to be doing that, you come down here and uncomment out these lines that say push, RTMP, and so forth. You'll add multiple lines in there, basically like that, without that hashtag, with the RTMP path that you're going to be sending that to. We're not going to be doing that here right now, so we don't need to worry about that. But if we're not doing that, and if we don't need to make a permanent recording of our video, we can get away with just a single application on here. So we only need the one application live section. However, if we need to do more, I will just very briefly show you how that's done. So I'm going to copy this entire section here. It says application live, and then I'm going to paste it, and then application for the second one, we're going to call it live 2. Okay, all right, so that's basically all it takes. You don't need to do anything else in order to add a second application there. Okay, all right, now the other thing that I want to point out here is the location of the files where they're actually going to be saved. So as we're actually doing video streaming, it's going to be broken up into separate files. We're going to be using a technology that's called HTTP live streaming, which is abbreviated to HLS. And what happens is every so many seconds, our server that we're setting up will break those bits of video, the streaming video, into separate files that we're going to see here on the computer here in a few minutes in a directory called HLS. And that directory is configured in the web server portion of our configuration file, which is at the bottom of our nginx.conf file. So HTTP is the protocol used for as a web server. And then we come down here and we're going to see that we have our files for our web server stored in nginx/srv, and then if we scroll up a little bit, we can see that our HLS path, which is where these HLS files are going to live, is nginx/srv HLS. And so that's where any video that we're streaming to our server is going to get stored, and that's where the people who are viewing the files and viewing the video are going to be able to download these files in order to do their live streaming from. So we don't need to change that. As long as you extracted your Nginx files to the root of your C drive, it's already pre-configured and ready to go. So we don't need to do anything additional here. So we can go ahead and close this file, and then go ahead and save changes. Yep. And I'm going to minimize this, and then I'm going to show you something else that we're going to need to do here. If we need to do multiple streams simultaneously, then we're going to need to create a file on the web server for each video that we're streaming. So for each stream key that we set up, we need to have an HTML file that basically points the viewer, person who's watching the video, to the right video data on our server. So what we're going to do is we're going to go into the SRV folder that we've got right here, and I've got one file already set up here. This is viewer.html, and this is going to be for that stream 1 key that we already talked about earlier. If we need to do multiple stream keys, we need to copy this file for each one of those things. So just as a point of demonstration, I'm going to make a copy of viewer.html, and I'm going to call this one viewer2.html. Okay? And then what we're going to need to do is we're going to need to open this file in Notepad and make a change to this in order to redirect the viewers to the appropriate files on our web server. Right click and say Edit with Notepad++, and I'll zoom back out again. And we'll come down here near the bottom of the file. This is on line 17 right here right now. But here, this is where we put our stream key. So if we're using the default stream key of stream 1, this is what we'll have in there, stream 1. And if we were, for example, needed to do one for stream 2, our stream key for stream 2, we just change that to stream 2. So this is basically the file name of the video files, the playlist for the video files that people are going to be watching. So in my viewer2.html, for stream 2, we're going to change that entry on line 17 to say stream 2. Okay. With that, we've got all the files set up, and we're actually ready to start doing some streaming. And make sure I have the right folder open, so C Nginx. And I'm going to go ahead and double click on start.bat. So by doing that, and we get a warning here, the system thinks it may be risky, but I'm going to go ahead and run it. So with that, we should be able to go into Task Manager and see that Nginx is running. Yeah, there we go. 3 copies. There will be 3 copies of Nginx running when everything's working right. And with that, our web server is running. We just need to start sending it some video. In my case, I am using Teradek Video Go for doing my RTMP encoding. So I'm going to go to that video, and I need to configure it with the URL, the RTMP URL for our stream. Again, if that's something you're not familiar with how to do, go watch my other video because I walk through that. So, but I'm going to go into settings. There is the RTMP URL for my current Nginx server. Remember we talked about our application name, that lives right here. So the format for that is RTMP:// the IP address that we're going to be running our server, / and then our application name from that Nginx configuration file, in this case live. And then we put in our stream key, in this case stream 1. Again, this is set up to accept any stream key if you're going to be streaming exclusively with RTMP for their viewers, but we're not trying to do that. We're trying to stream over a web server, so we need to make sure we're using a stream key here that we have in one of those viewer.html files. So for every stream key that you use, you need to have an equivalent viewer.html file, viewer whatever.html file, in order to direct to that particular stream of video. With that, I'm going to come down here and choose the bitrate. I'm going to stream at 6 megabits per second, so I'm actually getting some fairly decent quality video. I'm going to go ahead and click on apply, and then I'm going to go back to this first page on my video, and then I'm going to go ahead and click on go live, so it's actually sending video. So the video we're going to be having going here today is the last video I posted here on my YouTube channel about a wireless microphone system. So that will just kind of be going in the background as we work. Alright, now, if we want to find out if this is working, there's a couple of ways we can do that. You can use VLC like we did in the last video. So I'll just very quickly open that. RTMP://127.0.0.1/live/stream1. And there it is. So the video is actually making it into my copy of Nginx. It's receiving it, it's processing it. It's now available for me to watch locally in order to make sure that that's actually working properly. Now the other thing that's going on here is we talked about using HLS. So the HLS module that we enabled in this new configuration file is taking those bits of video and it's actually storing them on our web server. So if I go into SRV HLS, we can see, there we go. So there are the various bits of that video stream, each one broken up into 4-second segments. And then there's the stream1.m3u8. That's a file that basically tells anybody who's viewing which of those files to download and when. And that's how this web server streaming actually works. So the web browser downloads this playlist file. That playlist file tells it which video files that it needs to download in order for us to be able to watch in real time. And as we go, we're going to see that old files are actually being deleted and cycled out, and it's only going to keep a certain number of files based on what we've set up in that configuration file. In this case, I've got it set up for 60 files. So after we reach 60 files, it's going to go back and delete the first. When it gets to 61, and then when it gets to 62, it's going to delete the second original file, and so forth. So there's always 60 files in there, which basically means that people watching can only go back 1 minute, because there's go back a couple minutes because there's only 60 files for them to go back and view. So again, this is not a permanent copy. This is meant only for live streaming. So if somebody joins late, they're out of luck. You're only going to be able to watch the live copy of the stream. Okay, now that we can see that the video is actually coming in, it's being stored in these files in this HLS directory, we can actually pull up our web browser and start watching. So if I go to my copy of Microsoft Edge here and create a new tab, and I'm going to type in the URL for my web server that I've just set up here on my computer. So http://127.0.0.1/viewer.html. Remember, we set up that viewer.html and we did the viewer2.html. This is where we put in those different names in order to view those various files. So I'm going to click on that, hit enter. And then, if I click on the play button, there we go. So the video is now streaming to my web browser. So in order to build the URL that you're going to give to your viewers, you're actually going to want to use your own public IP address. And again, you use the same tool that I talked about in the previous video in order to find out what that is. So djp.li/myip. And you're also going to need to open up a port on your router for people from the outside to be able to come in and connect to your computer on the inside. I'm not going to provide instructions on how to do that. You're going to have to consult your router manufacturer's manual or go for help on other places on the internet. But basically you need to make sure that port 80 is routed from the outside of your network into your internal computer on its own local IP address. So there you go. I went through it very quickly. But all the instructions that you need are actually here or in the document that's actually included in that zip file download. So if I went too fast, you can go back and rewind, watch the video again, or consult the PDF file that's included in that zip file that you downloaded from my website. So anyway, There you go. That's how to do it. But again, I very strongly recommend that you not do this. Your internet connection is not equipped to handle this. It's not designed for the high amount of bandwidth that you're going to be using for uploads. And if you put it in the cloud, it's going to cost you a lot of money if you have very many viewers. So not necessarily the greatest idea, but again, this is how you do it. So if someone wants to extend this and make it work with other protocols, for example, Dash is another protocol that's used for doing live streaming, feel free to modify those files and then join us on our Discord server. That's djp.li/discord in order to get an invitation to join, and share what you've done. Share the configuration files changes that you've made in order to add additional capabilities. There's one other one that I might suggest, and that would be adding an HTTPS, an SSL, TLS certificate in order to make sure that viewers are able to download your content over a secure connection that's not going to be observed or tampered with anywhere in transit. There you go. If you have questions about this, please ask on Discord. I'm not able to take emails on this. The response from the original video has been absolutely overwhelming. At the time I'm recording this, that video has over 18,000 views. And it seems like everybody who watched the video has emailed me for additional help. So I'm not going to be able to offer much by the way of help on this myself. Please join us on Discord for help from the community there. So thanks everyone for watching, and have a great day.